What's up, guys? Today's topic is high volume. Is high volume the way to go for hypertrophy? You guys know what my answer is going to be. I don't agree with it, but let's take a look at what a study shows that says that anywhere between 10 sets and 20 sets per body part per week is ideal for hypertrophy. Now, the first issue I have is it 10 sets? Is it 20 sets? Is it 15? I mean, that's such a big range. But for the sake of argument, let's give it 20 sets per bigger body part. So we're talking about the chest, the back, the shoulders, the quads. And let's say for the sake of argument, it's 10 sets for the smaller body parts. We're talking about 10 sets per week for biceps, triceps, abs, calves, and hamstrings. So when you look at the numbers, what we're talking about here is 130 sets per week, 130 sets over the course of 7 days. Now, let's say we divide that into 5 days a week. We take the weekend off, whatever scheme that might be, and that adds up to 26 sets per workout. 26 sets. If each set is about a minute long and you take about 2 minutes in between to recuperate in between sets, to change weights, all of that stuff, plus, you know, the time it takes to get into the gym, get ready, time it takes to get out of the gym, get yourself set up, you're looking at about 90 minutes. My personal feeling is that's complete overtraining, especially if there's any semblance of high intensity sets within that framework of 26 sets. All right, so that's my initial take on it. When you take a look at the candidates they use for some of these studies, usually they're university students, almost always they are, usually the age of 18, 19, 20, 21. They may take untrained individuals, they might take trained individuals. As far as I'm concerned, when you take untrained individuals, that's not the data I want to see. I want to see the data of trained individuals. I want to see how well they respond to the appropriate amount of sets. So having said that, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at people who have a lot of time over the course of the week to train. I've got to be a little bit more of a realist and look at the average person. The average person training might be 25 years old, 30, 35 years old. That average person holds a 9-to-5 job. That average person works 40 hours per week. That average person has a commute to work. You got to factor that kind of stuff in. All right, so that person wakes up Monday morning, gets ready. Because that training session is 90 minutes to 2 hours to get to the gym and back and put in that volume, 26 sets, chances are they're not going to work out in the morning. Unless you're super driven, super ambitious, you're going to do your commute in the morning, you're going to get to work, you're going to come home somewhere around 5:30, you're going to shower up, you're going to have your dinner, and then somewhere around 7 o'clock, you're going to head to the gym. 5 days a week, from 7 to 8:30, you're going to commit to the gym, you're going to come home tired, go to bed after showering up, watching some TV, and you're back at it the next day. And you're going to go through a day of work, you're going to be exhausted, and head back to the gym again. 5 days a week, you're going to have the weekends off. And you've got to do that again and again and again. Do you honestly think with that kind of volume and that kind of work schedule that anyone is going to make any significant progress? The reality is a muscle is going to recover if you train it very hard, 72 hours, 96 hours to recover fully. So you train chest on Monday, it could very well be ready again for Friday. That's fine. But overall, system-wide, your entire body is so taxed that you're not going to recuperate properly enough. So people say, well, I've got the weekend to recover. Bullshit, that's not going to happen. And we didn't even take into account that some people have stress from bills to pay. People have shitty marriages. There's people out there who have kids, they have their kids' events. So what happens to those people? So you're saying bodybuilding, progressive strength training is only for people aged 20 to 24 with no jobs or part-time jobs? That's bullshit. This kind of training scheme, 130 sets per week, is not realistic at all. And I think you got to look at that and say, that's just not the approach that I want to take. I want to have a life outside of the gym. Right? I want to have a relationship with my spouse. I want to go to my kids' events. I want to have time where I can chill out. I don't want to spend my evening in the gym like a fucking gym rat, hanging around with sweaty guys, having pissing contests about what I lift. And I don't want to come home exhausted only to do it again and again. And then by Thursday, I've got to train legs, for example, and I'm going to put in a good workout. Bullshit. It's just not going to happen. There's these young bucks out there who are just starting out and they want to do things right. And I get it. If you want to do things right and the study says it's 10 to 20 sets per week, here's what I want you to do. I want you to be brutally honest and I want you to give it a shot. See how it works for you. Do your 20 sets per body part and then write down your progress. Record how much weight you're lifting every week, how many reps you're getting, and look at that progression over time. I also want you to look at your diet and keep your diet intact with the proper amount of protein, the proper amount of calories, and that's another variable. The third variable is, are you getting enough sleep? The fourth variable is, are your tape measures for your biceps, your shoulders, your chest, your back, your legs, your calves, are they getting bigger? But are they getting bigger because you're gaining muscle, or are they getting bigger because you potentially could be getting fatter? So what you want to do is also take the body fat measurements as well, right? So you take all of those factors, your strength increases, your measurements, your pinches, your diet, and you stick with this 20 set scheme over the course of the week, and never mind a fucking study. You are the fucking study. And what ends up happening is over 6 to 8 weeks, you can see a pattern. You're going to say, this isn't working. I'm exhausted. I need to change things up. And usually the change up is taking days off the schedule and reducing your volume and perhaps increasing the intensity. But that's the way you got to look at it beyond the study. Okay, you commit to something, you run with it, and hey, if it works, fantastic, keep doing it. But if you're actually not seeing the progress, you need to make some changes, because as far as I'm concerned, that volume is ridiculous. So my question for a person training like that is, when do you plan to recover? Second thing is, when do you plan to recover and then actually adapt and grow? The third thing is, how do you know you've recovered and adapted and created new growth? So usually, like I said, that's the tape measures, that's the body fat pinches, that's the increase in strength, that's the increase in reps. And then you know for sure. Then you can say, yeah, I've validated this study. But don't be afraid to try to validate the study. Don't go on word that this is my Bible for the next 20 weeks if it's not working. That's stupidity. Trust yourself, trust your own instincts, give it a shot. Personally, like I said, I don't think you're gonna grow. I don't think you're gonna adapt from that kind of stimulus. I actually think you're gonna break down. So what people end up doing is they go into a deload phase because they know it's not working. I remember back in university, hey, I was a high volume junkie. It was 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. It was 2 hours a day. And you got to a certain point where you were training like a madman and you weren't seeing progress. And you started feeling the joints in your chest, the elbows, a lot of pain in the wrists. You started feeling the pain in the knees, and you're like, tight hips. You're like, shit, this isn't working. And then you take 2 weeks off because the university's closed. You come back stronger than ever, and you're like, what just happened? That didn't make sense. And year after year, you notice that during the Christmas break or during reading week, you made the biggest progress because you weren't allowed to train during that time. Back in the 90s, the gyms were closed at that time, right? I trained at the university. That's why they were closed. And you realize that, hey, wait a second. It was the recovery that got us stronger. It wasn't the stimulus of overtraining in the gym. All right. So the average person training with a family, with a 40-hour job, with that kind of volume, especially as you get to 30, 35, 40 years old, you're not going to make progress. You need to cut down your volume. You're probably better off cutting your volume in half and increasing the intensity. Now, there's certain people who are going to grow like crazy. The people who are going to grow like crazy are beginners. The second group are people on gear. And the third, people who really know what they're doing, who have their plan periodized properly, who have the appropriate intensity, who have the appropriate volume, who have the appropriate life situation environment where they're not stressed by their wife and their kids and their job. They have time to sleep, they eat properly. Those are usually the people who make progress, and those people are few and far between. Out of every 10 people who are in that category, maybe 1 or 2 make progress. I've seen it. Very few people make progress in the gym. If I was required to do 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, and I could actually see results, I would commit to that short term, gain all my muscle in 6 months, and then walk away and maintain from there on in. But the reality is that wasn't the case. And then I think you got to question yourself and say, what the fuck am I actually doing here? Committing this much time with very little return. And so many people, what they do is they try to do that and they realize they're going nowhere. They're spinning plates. So they end up changing their diet, They end up doing more, training with another routine, doing Chris Bumstead's routine, and they're just spinning plates for years and years and years. That's not my style of doing things. I'd rather take it the smart approach and actually evaluate carefully, maybe get a coach, say, you know, coach, what the fuck do you recommend? Because this isn't working. I think you could do a lot more with a lot less volume and back off. Have those days to actually recuperate properly, have those days to rest and have a life outside of the gym. I think it's really important to be a balanced person. I don't think living in the gym is a healthy idea. A lot of people watching this video are going to disagree. That's their haven, that's their mental space. I think if that's your mental space and you go in 3-4 times a week, that's fantastic. But if you're going in there every day and you're just grinding it out and life is a battlefield, I think you got to reevaluate your own life and look for some other hobbies, look for some other passions outside of the gym.